My late father was a knight of the Friedenburg Empire, precisely one of the war casualties they lost during the last war of conquest. Supposedly, the families of the fallen knights will receive some good amount of compensation for the services rendered by those who had left this mortal coil. Nevertheless, my family, who had been left behind by the only backbone of the family, did not get anything in return. Not even a piece of my father's limbs came back to us. Maybe it's because they know my mother is from Malasaraje, the small nation they lost the battle. Whilst mother had just returned to the arms of God last winter, leaving me and the boys with a multitude of bitter realities we must face. There were not enough time to be saddened by her death, for every possibility in life is still waiting long ahead. At home, I had two little brothers waiting for me. They were much younger than me, named Budimir and Syahdaniella, who still had to depend on me financially. Be that as it may, to fulfill their own crucial daily needs, such as food, they have to look for it themselves by working as chimney sweeps. And thus, that was the reason I ended up as a maid in an elite townhouse owned by one of the Friedenburg VIPs, the young counselor, Lord Marius Johann Willem van Friedenburg. He's a hard-working man, all devoted for the well-being of his country. In the same townhouse lived the counselor's fiancée, Lady Julia Marita van den Heuvel, and her fastidious mother. The lady I served was a person who is rigorous, perfectionist, and super critical about things, even the slightest. One day, I was just dusting off the lady's statue collections when it was the 213th stage's turn to get clean. A fellow maid hastily came to me with a worried face. My biggest fear had occurred. That's what I thought at that time. It turned out she was going to deliver some bad news regarding my little brothers. When he's on his job, Budimir fell from the height of a chimney, which resulted in broken bones and barely made it out alive. While the other one, Syahdaniella, had a high fever post-distancing, his brother fell after sleeping on his steps. My legs weakened when I heard the news. But soon after, her ladyship, who had heard the news, reassured me that it was fine to take a break for some moment. She said it was my sick brothers that should be on my priority now. She lent me a carriage to ensure I made it home unscathed. Although sometimes she might be irritating, but the lady showed a pretty favorable actions towards her liege man. If I was to work at another household, my master definitely would not be as nice. They probably would kick me in the ass of what I committed was an insult to the nobility. I was shocked when I arrived at home. My younger brothers were in a really terrible state. Usually, the two of them will cause noise and chaos everywhere in this house with their silly little fights. But regardless of their injuries, they can no longer did that for some time. I felt sorry too for their condition. When I saw some wet towels, medicines, and cigarette butts beside their bed, I realized Uncle Yega, my late mother's most recent and last life partner, was here not long ago. Thank goodness, someone still took care of them when I'm away. Next time, I really had to thank him, even though there was some unwillingness in my heart. I didn't rest just yet after putting down my luggages. After making sure they were sleeping soundly, I sneaked out of the house. Then I stopped a random passing wagon so I could catch a ride to the largest shopping district in Friedenburg. It didn't even matter if I had to squeeze myself between the piles of hay loaded by the cart, since trains were too expensive and walking would take too much time. Moreover, the distance between our house and the shopping district was not so far that we had to ride a train. And besides, the train station was actually much further than my destination from here. On an unrelated note, the wagon hitchhike cost me about 2 marks, almost equal to my monthly salary as a housemaid. I must be grateful to work under the Lord van Friedenburg and Lady van den Heuvel. The salary I received was 2 times of my friend's wage who worked for other noble manor. Can you believe that? By the way, I just realized it while sitting on the pile of hay. Today was a sunny day. The wind was blowing gently, not too strong, not alone slow, which was good. The air was at least still breathable. All of these were rare circumstances to me, who lived in the populous capital. The clamorous noises from car and train engines had not becoming a problem. The scent of 1,000 people's perfume, smokes blowing from the train's chimneys, subsequent to the smell of beer and cigars from the alleys fusing together, was not a trouble either. People passing by doing their own activities, not minding the others. It was just how the capital is. Crowded, stinky, and suffocating. High contrast to the breathtaking architectural heritage still stand strong throughout this capital. It was an overall perfect day in this Friedenburgish summer. After I arrived at the market, the first thing I did was checking the contents of my to-buy list. First, there was pumpernickel, a traditional dark rye bread from this empire. It tastes a bit sour, but eating them always brought us to reminiscence our journey from the old days of living as a beggar. Until now, we can seek for money ourselves without counting on the pities of people. I knew a very good place to buy them, by the way. The store was operated by a lovely old married couple, Mr. and Mrs. Bauer. Their store was located at Mittelstrasse, a shopping district between Arbeitsmarkt sector and the fancier Hochkulturstrasse high street. Breads from this small bakery was surprisingly also popular among the nobles. Its rich tastes had successfully bewitched their hearts and minds. Many servants from renowned households stopped off to buy products from this bakery. Albeit I only eat both few cheap rye breads, Mrs. Bauer gave me bread pudding she made, while conveying the hope that my brothers would get well very soon. The second in my to-buy list was sauerkraut. This was one of the core ingredients to make a schi, a Malasaraje originated cabbage. Sauerkraut was made from fermented cabbage. Its making method was similar to that of pickle. It was actually easy to make one yourself, but I needed fast. I couldn't wait to make the schi for my younger siblings from the market, like mother used to every time we were feeling sick. So I went to the grocery market side of the shopping district. At the grocery store, I had some other vegetables I needed both, beside the sauerkraut and cabbages. Likewise, potatoes, dry mushrooms, onions, and carrots. Originally, there was supposed to be chicken broth and other spices, like black pepper. Sadly, with the amount of money I possessed right now, I'm afraid I could not afford them. Black pepper was one of the expensive spices to be bought, even for nobles. I circled the sector to find each good ingredients at prices that fit my pocket just right. But I must remember to be frugal in shopping this time, because the money was not only needed for food. Soon after all the ingredients on the list have been bought, it was time to go home. In the Arbeitsmarkt area, there were lots of vehicles that could be used, but people were being too busy and refused to give a ride, no matter how great the rewards the hitchhikers offered. So I walked a bit to the Hochkulturstrasse High Street, which was purposely exclusive for the high society. At Hochkulturstrasse, there were more ride selection, even though it cost more expensive regardless. Finally, I arrived at the Hochkulturstrasse. This district was busier than usual. People say an important meeting of the aristocrats was held today. That was the reason why many high-end vehicles such as buggies, carriages, and automobiles were parked around the Vinya Salon. Vinya Salon itself was a luxurious facility provided by the Friedenburg Empire government to show off the glory of its rule. This place was personally managed under the surveillance of Her Imperial Majesty, the Empress. I was originally wanted to leave as quickly as possible, but that intention faded a bit when my eyes captured someone familiar. Accidentally, I saw Lady van den Heuvel making a fuss along her steps. Her ladyship looked like she was nagging about the speed of work and the inattention of the goods carriers behind her. But oddly, the lackeys did not fume and enjoyed the nagging of their master instead. It always been a funny sight to see. Well, I was not surprised at all by her presence here, of all places. She was the future wife of a counselor after all. It seems really weird if a figure as important as my lady was not invited to a grand event like this. Today must be the day she used to talk about so much, some months before. She really seems to be looking forward to this day, but I did not greet her at all in the end. I just pretended not to see the crowd, turned around, and went back to look for a cheap vehicle that could take me home. At that time, I took a stroll while turning my head to the right and left alternately, enjoying the astonishing architectural views that were more extraordinary than the previous places. In general, the shopping district Pemusik was a very interesting place to explore. There was also many Friedenburg's cultural heritage here. It was also the largest district, obviously, next to the Kronenberg, where the imperial family resides. It was a place where the state revenues of the Friedenburg Empire revolved. Hochkulturstrasse had a much more variety of items sold. Even important things like simple medical equipment shops were only could be found here. So I stopped by one of the medical supply stores to buy bandages for my brother to change and some cheap painkillers. And after walking for about half an hour, I finally found a good ride. The ride I meant was a wagonette. A wagonette was a four-wheel carriage with 3 sets of seats. The one facing front was for the coach, while the other 2 facing each other, placed on both the left and right side of the wagonette. Those were for the passengers. For your information, I did not pay for this, because fortunately I happened to know the coach. His name was Mr. Leung. He was a friend of Uncle Jäger. I fancied the ride very much. It was way more enjoyable and pleasurable than the cart I rode when I trooped off earlier. The passenger seats had a cozy, soft satin cushion that made us more comfortable during the trip. I could even observe and admire the sky properly. However, when the wagonette I was riding in was already some distance from the shopping district, I heard a loud bang! The sound came from far behind. At the time, I jumped from the wagonette because of my shock. I reflexively ran towards the district, remembering my few acquaintances were still there. Even my master, Lady van den Heuvel, was still there. I absolutely could not accept having to give up the atmosphere and jobs I loved in the counselor's townhouse. Not even Mr. Young could hint at my impulsive actions that night. I heard him shouting, "Nadja! Nadja!" repeatedly, but could not care much. June the 13th, 1917. the day Friedenburg Empire received a horrific gift from the world, which was destruction. Along with it, the opening of a new gate to the hell had just begun. By God's miracle, I survived. Due to the massive explosion that day, I lost my eyesight and jaw. Even my ears could barely pick up sounds around me, although the sound source was clearly very close to me. Henceforth, I was a blind, deaf, and jobless person ever since. I've lost contact with my younger brothers and stepfather from then, but I did hope they were fine. I've lost contact with my younger brothers and stepfather from then, but I did hope they were doing fine and lived a happy life. Even so, I'm grateful that I still had my sanity, but sometimes I also felt that maybe it was better to die than to bother people by going back and forth from one refugee camp to another. There were many things that I and other people had lost because of this war. And ironically, it all started by the power-hungry and selfish top people. The end.